Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So I came ready to preach today. I hope you're ready to have a little bit of fun before we dive into the message. How many people have experimented with AI? Like you've created things, I've tried to write songs with AI. I've never tried to write a message, just so you know this, but I've noticed with AI, although it's pretty intelligent, AI lacks one thing: common sense. I've noticed that AI lacks common sense, or sometimes you can create a picture with AI, and it kind of looks like it, it's got elements of reality, but then you're like, there it is. There's the fake. We have to be able to determine what AI is and what the real thing is. Like, it can create pictures, but we have to be able to determine, is it fake by a little or is it fake by a lot? And does it make a difference if it's fake? Does it make a difference if it's a little fake or if it's a lot of fake, right? Or if it's the real thing? There's a big difference. So I looked up some AI pictures, and I also created some AI pictures. And just to have a little bit of fun, here's some of the AI fakes I found and some that I created. The first one, this is one of my favorite AI photos. This is LeBron James dressed like Barbie. And I love this picture of him. I want to frame it. The next picture. Now, they've both been hitting the gym. They're getting ready for the next presidential race. They're bulking up. They're mean mugging each other. So they've been hitting the gym. And honestly, Joe Biden kind of looks like Mel Gibson a little bit in the face. Just a little bit. And then the next picture is Miley. She's in junior high now, but I was like, hey, show me Miley in high school with the perm and about a foot taller. And so AI created that picture of Miley, and it looks a little bit like her, but then as you look at it, you're like, I think it's fake. The next picture, this was a time that I went on a road trip on a motorcycle down Route 66. And so, yes, this is really me. No, it's not. But, yeah. And then the next picture is Jonah decided to join a boy band back in the 90s. And so, and he's probably about that tall, but he just has this ridiculous 90s boy band in sync, vibe going down. So, but I did all this to say we live in a day and an age where so many fakes exist. We need to know what is fake and what is real. We need to know what is fake and what is real, and especially in how we look at God and how we look at the Bible. So the purpose of this series is to go through and find the truth of what Jesus said, so it helps us to look at who he is. And the way we're going to do this in this series is by comparing what he didn't say, but people take it as real, and what he could have said, what he might have said, but he didn't say it. It's it sounds good on paper if you're the world, but we need to embrace the power of what he did say. So today we're going to talk about what he didn't say and about happiness. So now here's the thing is the world says AI Jesus, this is what AI Jesus says. He says, go do what makes you happy. AI Jesus says, go do what makes you happy. Go do what makes you happy. And what I know about all of you is you probably want to be happy. You probably want to be, I don't know anybody. I don't know anyone that I've ever talked to who says, my goal is to be completely miserable in life. My goal is to be so miserable, like I want to hate my life. Like nobody says that. But let's look at what Jesus didn't say about happiness to find the power of what he did say. So let me give you a few things just for fun before we dive in. So AI Jesus says, go into all the world and preach whatever makes people happy. Go into all the world and preach whatever makes people happy. And then AI Jesus says, whoever wants to be my disciple must affirm themselves, avoid the cross, and follow their own heart. AI Jesus says, ask and it'll be given to you because God is your celestial sugar daddy. He's your cosmic Coke machine. So turn with me to John chapter 8. We're going to look at a relatively long story that has incredible power and application to every single one of us. And today, at the end of this story, we're going to look at very specifically at what Jesus did not say and what he did say. So because of what he did say, it has a power to transform our lives. John chapter 8, verse 2, and we'll start here. It says, at dawn, Jesus appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him. He sat down to teach them, the teacher of the law and the Pharisees. Now, these were people who looked very religious. And they looked religious on the outside, but generally speaking, they were hypocritical inside. The teachers and the Pharisees of the law, they brought a woman caught in adultery. Now, let's pause for just a moment here because I want to visualize this. Jesus is in the town square, and he's essentially leading a Bible study. He's essentially leading a life group. And then some hypocritical religious men drag a woman that was caught in the act of adultery. Now, there's a couple of things, if we had more time, we'd talk about was, for one, where was the man in this story? Because he's obviously left out. And from what I know, it takes two to commit adultery. Secondly, where were these guys hiding to catch the woman in adultery? Like, what? Were you peeping? Like, when you found a woman caught in adultery, but nonetheless, these guys bring a woman caught in the act of adultery. Now, chances are very good that she was not dressed. She was more than likely naked. And so they drug her. This would have been the lowest moment of her life. This would have been the most humiliating thing. The shame, the guilt, and they made this woman stand naked before Jesus and before the group, before the entire town, in the town square. They drug her. And I can imagine them just throwing her down, going, and verse 3, they made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law of Moses, he commanded us to stone such women." Now imagine, they're going to publicly throw rocks at this woman until she dies a very horrible death. What do you say to that? And that's what they asked Jesus. They said, now what do you say? They said, she was caught in adultery. The law of Moses tells us to stone such women. What say you? And verse 6 shows us the motives behind their question. They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing Jesus. See, they put Jesus into what appears to be a no-win situation. They were trying to trap him because, according to the law of Moses, this woman was guilty and she should be stoned according to the Old Testament law. And what I hope you'll understand is I'm not speaking about medicinal stoned. I'm not speaking about being stoned recreationally. And I'm not speaking about if you got your little medical card stoned. They're speaking about throwing rocks the size of baseballs at her until she dies. So Jesus is in an odd spot. And if he says, hey guys, AI Jesus would have said, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. See, if he said that, he would be disagreeing with the law. And if he disagreed with the law, who he was proclaiming to be the hand that wrote the law, then he would be condoning sin and disagreeing with the law, which would have made him a hypocrite. That would have made him they would have been like, see, you're not the Messiah. You're not the Son of God. Because the Son of God would never disagree with the law. Because the law is right. The law, God, he wrote the law. And if you disagree with God, then you're not God. But if he said, go ahead, go for it, stone her, he loses his reputation and he counters the very message of grace and love that he started preaching. He counters the very essence of who he was proclaiming to be. So if he was in a no-win situation. So what in the world is Jesus going to do? It's danged if you do and danged if you don't. Like he's in a spot. And it says in verse 6, but Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. Get this. They asked him a question, and he ignores them. He ignores them, and he stoops down, and he starts scribbling in the sand. And from that day and time, people have been wondering, what was he writing in the sand? That everybody's asked that question. What was he writing in that sand? And the answer is we don't know for sure. Nobody knows. A lot of people have a lot of theories. And I have a theory, and I'll tell you my theory, but the answer is we don't know for sure. Later manuscripts, later on, about 200 AD, 300 AD, they said that Jesus was writing the sins of the hypocritical men. And we don't know for sure, but I tend to think that that's likely. And I'm going to show you why. And one of the reasons is because there's two different words in the New Testament that describe the word write. The first word is called graphing, and it means to carve or write down. It's to carve or write something. And the other word, which is only used one time in the New Testament, it only appears once in the New Testament, and that's in this spot. And it's katagraphing, and it means to write against. This is the word that when you write something, it's if you go to a court of law, if you're in a court or if you're in front of authorities and you write an implication. And that's the context that they use. Katagraphing is the literal word that they used in there. And it means that Jesus wrote something against something. He wasn't just scribbling in the sand. So it was an implication in this context. And so whatever Jesus wrote in the sand, it was something against someone. And I'm just visualizing this. Jesus is looking out at the Pharisees. And maybe he sees Phil. And if there's a Phil in here, I'm sorry. But he sees Phil, and he's scribbling, and he's writing down, and he's like, Phil, I know what's in your browser history. You were searching for Babylonian bikini babes last night. And he was writing something against. It was an implication, according to the text. In verse 7, it says, they kept on questioning him. Jesus, he stood up. He straightened up. And this is what he said. He said, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. And what's interesting to me is, again, we're going to get into the language a little bit, because language kind of brings clarity, because it's like the English language love. When you say love, you can mean, like I love our team, I love chocolate, and I love my wife, and all three of them have different contexts. All three of them mean a different thing. And so when we look at the language that it was written in, we want to bring out the context of what kind of word they were using. So when Jesus said, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone, the word sinless in the original language, when it says without sin, the context is without even wanting to sin. Because Jesus was all about that. It's all about the heart. And he would say, hey, you heard it said don't commit adultery. And he said this. He said, but I tell you, anyone who looks upon someone else with lust in their heart has already committed it. And so Jesus is using this same context. He said, let any one of you who doesn't even want to sin be the first to throw a stone. And I don't know about you, but there's been a lot of times when I didn't do it, but there was a part of me that wanted to. Like, is that too real? Like, I didn't do it, but I wanted to. There's been times when I didn't punch someone in the face, but man, I thought about just grabbing home, but I didn't. It's also true, when you read this, that we're really good at finding other people's sins, and we're pretty good about covering ours up. We're good at finding other people's sins, and we're really good. Like, I'm an expert at covering my tracks, and my wife is an expert at uncovering them. Man, I can do something and try and hide it, and she will come in, she's like, you cheated on your diet, didn't you? I smell cinnamon rolls. I'm like, woman, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, that's the devil. That's what that is. The devil came up in here, and he cooked cinnamon rolls, and he tried to frame me. There was one time that I was preaching to the youth ministry, and this is years ago, and I was preaching a message to the youth on lying. Like, hey, you got to tell the truth. You got to be honest. Your integrity is at stake. Like, you don't lie. Tell the truth at all times. Then Amy said, go to the grocery store and pick something up and be fast because we have people coming over. She had family coming over. And so I had just preached on lying. And I go to Kroger. And I get to Kroger, and I don't know if you've been in a small town, but in a small town, everybody knows everybody. And so it's like every time you go to the grocery store, you go to Walmart, it's like you see a friend, it's like a family reunion. And so I get there, and all of a sudden there's people I see, I'm like, oh crap, I got to be fast. Don't make eye contact, don't make eye contact. And they're like, hey, Pastor Kevin. I'm like, oh. And so what I do? I pulled out my phone, and I acted like I was talking on the phone. I'm like, hey, hold on. Hey, I'm on the phone. Hey, it's good to see you. Bye. Guess what happened? As as I'm telling him I'm on the phone started ringing. Amy called me while I was like telling people I was on the phone with her. Right after I preached a message on do not lie. Man, tell me that God does not have a sense of humor. So, whoever is not only without sin, but you've never even wanted to sin, you can pick up the rock and you could be the first one to hurl it. And it says, again, Jesus stooped down and he's writing on the ground. And the word, it's the same. He's like cartographing. And it says, at this, those who heard began to go away one at a time. See, first Phil left because he got embarrassed. You know, Jesus is like, I saw your browser history, bro. And I just added that part, okay? But the older ones left at first until only Jesus was left with the woman standing there. And Jesus straightened up and he asked her, he said, woman, where are they? Where are your accusers? And he said, has no one condemned you? And she says, no one, sir. And Jesus said, neither do I. Now, here's where AI Jesus interjects. Because the world takes the scripture, and I don't know if you've caught on to the way the enemy does, but the enemy will take some kind of truth, and he will twist it just a little bit to make it palatable, but it's still a lie. It's still a fake. And it's just like the AI pictures. Like, there's some, you can look at it and you're like, man, that really looks like Miley. That really looks like Jonah. Like, it captured their facial expressions and their eyes. But you're looking at it and you're like, but it's still a little off. And a little bit of off still makes it a whole lot of fake. And so the truth can be a little off. But when it's a little off, it matters. And here's where AI Jesus interjects, and the real Jesus did not say these things. And so AI Jesus says, go now and do whatever makes you happy. Go now and follow your heart. Follow your heart. Just the colors of the wind. AI Jesus would have said, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you don't hurt anyone else. You be you. You do you. YOLO. Go now and do you, boo. So, no, Jesus said in verse 8, go now and leave your life of sin. This is what I want you to get. This was not a condemning statement. This was not a judgmental statement. He was full of love when he said this. Jesus was saying, go now, don't wait. You're free. Like, you don't have to live in shame anymore. You're free from sin. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to live in darkness. You don't have to be held hostage anymore. You are free. Walk in the truth. Why is it that so many of us, including myself, we give in to temptation so often? And the answer is that it looks appealing, right? It looks fun, right? We think that it's fun. It's like it's sort of like when you eat something you know you shouldn't eat. It's fun for like a brief few minutes. Like, oh, this pie tastes so good. Ice cream. As I get older, like, it's so good, but I always regret it later. Because lactose, however you want to say it tastes good, but it's not good for you. So Hebrews, the book of Hebrews calls sin, it calls the fun of sin, it says the fleeting pleasures of sin. It's pleasurable for a little while. Sin can be fun. It really can. And if you don't think it's fun, then you're doing it wrong. I like to try and get in the mind when I read the Bible. I try to get in the mind of the people in the stories so I can get the context. So I can kind of really depict what's going on. And we have no idea what kind of woman she was. Like, maybe she really was just like that, and she was a home wrecker, and she's like, I'm going to wreck someone's marriage. And maybe she had bad intentions. We don't know. But our odds are, and I'm just playing the odds, was that she was probably a decent, kind woman. And if she was in a modern day context, in today's day and age, because it helps me, she was married. She probably was married. Well, I guess she was. She was in adultery. And her husband and her, at first, they loved each other. Maybe a lot. Maybe they fell in love, and it was like a whirlwind romance, and they got married, and then maybe your husband started taking her for granted, and he didn't appreciate her. And maybe he was verbally abrasive sometimes. Maybe he worked a lot and he just kind of got hangry sometimes and took it out on her. And maybe even worse. And so their relationship status, it kind of goes flat. And perhaps she goes and gets a job and feels a little bit better about herself because she's got some self-confidence. I'm doing something right. So in her job, she meets a guy, and she's interacting with this guy at work. And he's kind of fun, and they kind of have great conversation, and it's totally innocent. She has no bad intentions, and she kind of enjoys talking to the guy, and like he kind of gets her. And he starts paying a little bit more attention to her. And she feels a little bit guilty because it's still kind of innocent, but she feels a little guilty because she kind of enjoys it too much. And he compliments her one day, and he tells her that he appreciates her work, and he says, you did a good job on this. You're really good at handling conflict. You're really good at handling customer service. And then one day he notices that she highlighted her hair. And her husband didn't notice that she highlighted her hair. And she finds herself looking forward to the interactions with him. But there's still a part of her that she doesn't really have bad intentions, but she's looking forward to her interactions. And her heart kind of moves in that direction. And then he finds her on Instagram. And he starts following her. And he starts liking all her photos. And then he starts commenting on her Instagram posts, #fire, #emojis, hashtag with the little smiley face blowing a kiss, or #heart, or emojis. So, and one day, they stay late. And he opens up about his marriage and how he's unhappy, and his wife isn't that nice, and she's not good. And then a few weeks later, they're at work again, and he tells her, I think I made a mistake. I shouldn't have married her. I should have married someone like you. And that kind of starts thoughts in her mind, what it would be like to have married him instead of her husband. And she starts entertaining these thoughts. And then one day he accidentally brushes up against her arm. And she feels a spark. And she feels guilty, and she wonders, was that an accident? Or was it on purpose? Was it intentional? I felt something. Did he feel it? And she starts to think about him even when they're not at work. And then she tells her girlfriend about this guy at work, and how he listens to her and how he compliments her and how he pays her attention. And her girlfriend listens to AI Jesus. Her girlfriend goes to AI Jesus's church. And her girlfriend tells her, you need to follow your heart. You need to follow your heart. Jesus wants you happy. God wants you happy. And we don't know how it happened. But it could have been like that. Step by step. Seemingly innocent decision after seemingly innocent decision. And then she finds herself undressed in the most publicly shaming moment of her life. How did she get there? Sin promises satisfaction at the cost of disobedience to God, and eventually pain to yourself. It promises satisfaction at the cost of disobedience to God, and it eventually leads to pain. So why do so many of us end up in a similar place? We listen to AI Jesus. And AI Jesus says that everything is relative. There's no absolute truth. Do what makes you happy. Do whatever floats your boat. When the bottom line is your happiness, then your happiness becomes the standard. When your bottom line is your happiness, then your happiness becomes a standard. And here's the thing, is your happiness changes based on circumstances. So if your standard, which is your happiness, it changes, then we're messed up. So what is the problem with that kind of thinking? See, we think that happiness and holiness are at odds. We think that happiness and holiness are at odds with each other. And deep down, somehow because of our distorted view of what Christ represents, we tend to think that you have to choose one or the other. You have to choose either happiness or you have to choose holiness. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. And that's what AI Jesus says. It's happiness or holiness. If you choose holiness, then you're destined for a life of being miserable forever. And this is what I believed in college. This is what I believed as a young adult. I met Amy and she asked me, I was going to Bible college, and she asked me, she said, are you a Christian? I'm like, no, I'm not. And many of you know this story. I told her, I said, I believe in Jesus, but I'm not living my life for Jesus. I know. I'm not a Christian, but I believe. And I said, when I make the decision to become a Christian, I'll run at it as strong, as fast as I can, as hard as I can. But see, deep down, I thought that if I was going to become a follower of Christ, then I'm not going to have any fun. I'm going to be destined to live a life wearing pleated khaki pants and polos and listening to Amy Grant CDs for the rest of my life. No more fun. That's it. Jesus doesn't want you to have fun, and that's what AI Jesus says. It doesn't say that God so loved the world that he wanted his children to be holy and miserable. It doesn't say that. Matthew chapter 7, verse 11. This is what kind of God we have. It says, if you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more does your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? See, here's the thing, is God is after your joy. God's after your joy, not your happiness. And we find ourselves at odds. I want to be holy, but I don't want to be unhappy. I want to be righteous, but I don't want to, not have fun in life. I want to be a Christian, but I want to enjoy life. And we put them, it's like it's either or. And that's what AI Jesus wants you to believe. AI Jesus wants you to think that, hey, you can You can worship God. You can be a Christian, a real follower of Jesus, and you'll be miserable. Or you can take a little bit of truth and still get to heaven and enjoy your life. And the problem is we're looking at the wrong thing. It's a sleight of the hand. Can I get the band back on stage? So, I have a question for you. If you take a fish out of water and you put that fish on a beach, I love the beach. I'm a beach person. Every time I go to the beach, I love it. So if you take a fish out of the water and you put that fish on the beach, is the fish on the beach going to be happy? No. Fish is going to be flopping. He's going to be like flopping around on the sand, getting sand all up in his gills, trying to breathe, gasping for air. So, let's try and make him a little more happy. The fish is on a beach. Let's give him a pile of cash. Like, it's raining Benjis. It's raining Benjis. Is the fish going to be happy? No, he's not going to be happy. He's still flopping around trying to breathe. What if we throw a party for the fish in the fish's honor, and we get all the best-looking fish in the sea, and we give them some cool beats, and we throw a dance party so the fish can pop? Is the fish happy now? No. What if we give the fish a smartphone and we start him an Instagram account and social media account, and at the party the fish is able to take selfies and like hashtag fishbod, beachbod, fishbod, and then people start commenting, ooh, fire. Is the fish happy now? No. What if you get the fish a Playboy or a Playfish? You get the fish a Playfish magazine, and he's like, oh, look at the tail on that one. Like, is he happy? No. Here's why. The fish is never happy. Why? Because the fish was not created for the beach. The fish was not created for the beach. If you find yourself wondering why you're not happy, living for the things of this world, you were not made for this world. You will never have true joy because you were not created for the earth. That's why sin promises what it can never give. Sin promises what it can never deliver. We're on a quest for happiness. But we should realize that joy delivers what sin promises. Joy delivers what sin promises. Happiness is based on external stimuli. Happiness is based on external things, external circumstances, external stimuli. And joy is based on internal stimuli. Joy is based on what you have on the inside. Psalm 16, verse 11 says this: you will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. In your right hand there are pleasures forevermore. We are after the wrong thing. We're after happiness when we should be after joy. God is after your joy. Now, that's why when the woman who was caught in the most shame-filled moment of her life, Jesus didn't look at her and say, I'm embarrassed because of your behavior. I'm embarrassed that you would even do this. No, what Jesus said, he said, there's something so much better. There's something so much better for you. Be free. Go walk in truth now. You're free. But some of us, we're still not free. We are depending on an external stimulus, external stimuli, trying to fill the void of what's missing or broken inside. We're trying to it's called self-medication. And it provides temporary comfort or pleasure. That could be alcohol, We could self-medicate with alcohol, substances. Could take substances in our body. Kind of numbs us. Alcohol kind of numbs us. We can eat food to comfort us. You can self-medicate with food. I do it with the banana split every now and then. Maybe we go shopping and we spend money that we really know we shouldn't spend, but something about it makes us excited and it gets that dopamine kick, and maybe it's the wrong type of relationship. See, when you're medicating, here's what I want you to get. When you're medicating the internal with the external, it never lasts. When you medicate what's missing inside, the presence of God, the joy of the Lord, that peace, according to Philippians chapter 4, where it says God gives us the peace of God, because the God of peace gives it to us, and it says it will guard our hearts and it will guard our minds. Do you know that there are times in my life, and this is just very recent, the last couple of days, just stuff happens, and I'm like, God, I need the peace of God that Philippians chapter 4 says, because you say in Philippians chapter 4 that peace will guard my heart and that peace will guard my mind, and I need that. In 2011, my gallbladder started acting up, and I started having excruciating pain, and I didn't know what was going on. I was scared, and I'm like, this is not gas, this is not lactose, like this is, like, I don't know what this is, but I felt like I was dying. And I went to the ER, and they x-rayed me. And they gave me narcotics. And they gave me like Percocet and Oxycontin and stuff. And let me tell you, that stuff, I would take the pills, and I would find temporary relief, but guess what? The next day, I was hurting again. And I had a 30-day supply of pills. And see, what happened is I started to get on what I call pain management. And I think that some of us, spiritually speaking, we will get on pain management. And we will manage the pain, and we will manage like our miserable, like, because we don't have the joy. We don't have the peace of God. We don't have the calm assurance that He gives. And so we're pain managing what's missing or what's broken. And the problem was I was taking an external stimuli to cover up what was broken inside, which was my gallbladder. And so I had to go to a different hospital. And in January of 2012, they did another MRI and a CAT scan or whatever's like the most detailed. And they're like, hey, we have to do emergency surgery because your gallbladder is like, it's attacking. It was a gallbladder attack. And I was like, I didn't know gallbladder could attack me. And it was like squeezing, and it was trying, there was like a bile duct something was like blocked or something, so the gallbladder's trying to squeeze and so like I thought I was dying. And so they ended up taking my gallbladder out. Turns out it's a total accessory organ. You don't need it. Yeah, I mean, it helps if you keep it, but see, here's the thing was they ended up treating me internally instead of me taking things into my body externally to get a pain management. They did what they had to do internal stimuli to take the gallbladder out. No more pain. Some of us were living a lifestyle of pain management, spiritually speaking. Let God heal you on the inside. Let God fix what is broken or what is missing. Like the doctors, let Him remove what is causing the pain. God says, I have a better path for you. I'm not going to let anyone throw stones at you. Go be free. Will you please stand?